Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's Sunday, it's 3 p.m. in Dubai, and we're ready to go for the second episode of Wireless Workbench training. Thank you for joining. Hope you're doing well in this very, very strange time. Today, Dubai started the 24 hours lockdown, so now no one is allowed to walk on the road, and it looks even stranger than before. Hope you're all doing well, and let's try to focus. Oops, I just forgot to switch on my video. Not big loss actually, but here I am. You can see Grace in my background. We were saying lockdown is complete in Dubai, very strange time. Let's focus on something that is a little more interesting, funny, and hopefully relaxing, and as well as I hope you can learn something. So today we take care of the first of the three main pages of a wireless workbench, and we dive a little deeper in the inventory page, property management, presets, infrared, preset infrared for the different devices, and ultimately we add one more brick on the idea to use wireless workbench to make our wireless setup safer and more stable and more predictable in this specific part of a training, because I'm sure it happened to many of you. You start your setup, you have 8 microphones that are supposed to be all the same, but suddenly they are not. 7 of them are loud and 1 of them is not, or vice versa. That can be even more disturbing. So the idea is to learn how Workbench can help to have all our microphones starting from the same point. Especially today, we will be focusing mostly on Shure network devices. Then, starting from the next episode, that will be in 2 days, Tuesday at same time, and then it will be repeated next Sunday at always at 3 p.m. in Dubai. We'll go back and we will be a little more neutral, and we will understand how we can use. We will start digging into coordination. Therefore, we will be a little more. We will have a little more variety of equipment in our hands, real or virtual, doesn't matter. So let's see how the inventory page is built. Very simply, I think we already touched during the first episode, what is started from the extreme left of a screen. We see the green light next to the online devices, while a gray light something like a gray box will be there when we have a device that is not online. We'll see how to the next thing that we can see here is something that will help us to identify the device. So when we click on it, we are going to flash our device and we will be able to recognize it. Here we have access control. We can set up a personal identification number for every and each device, so only who's typing in that personal identification number can access the device from Workbench. This can be extremely helpful in case we have many different sessions at the same time controlling the same equipment. We'll do some examples, but it can be typically it's a main hall with breakout rooms, or eventually it can be a festival with multiple stages where everything is connected in the same network, and and we don't want to give full control to all the technicians and to all the wireless workbench sessions connected. Then we started with the Excel sheet portion of wireless workbench. So we have different parameters, and we can use them to control how the devices will be displayed in our list. We can use every parameter. It can be the model, it can be the device ID, it can be the channel name. So we can use it to have them in the same order that we have in our racks, in example. I guess all these categories are pretty much self-explanatory. We said channel name is the name of the audio channel. Device ID is the name of the hardware box that we are dealing with. Of course, we have a frequency, the band, the group and channel. Not really useful, in my opinion, if you have a wireless workbench on. You can as well decide what you want to see or not to see here. Definitely group and channel, it's something we can remove. The one thing that I want to focus a little more today is the tagging. Tagging can be important when we have big channel count, because we add a text string to the device, and we can use tags to group the channels together. It has no effect on the coordination. It's just a piece of imagine tape with your Sharpie. You can write a name on it to recognize and eventually to decide the order and to help the visualization. Another thing that is very important if we talk about order and visualization, and it's something I really find useful when I'm working with a setup that are having significant numbers, is the color code. Back in my touring days, we were saying, oh, it doesn't matter how bad is your back-to-back, doesn't matter if you didn't sleep not even 1 hour because you had to drive from one gig to another the whole night, or whatever happened the night before. The next day, whatever is your condition, you have to be able to set it up correctly again. Therefore, I think colors are one of the most helpful resources. If we have different racks, if we have different rooms, we can use the color coding to discriminate the different channels or the different areas. And then we have the most important part of our properties here, that are our properties here on the right side of the screen. Of course, we have some properties that are already displayed here, such as device ID. We can have, if we are talking about ULX Digital, I use it as an example because it has most of the features we are talking that Shure can offer. While most of the time ULXD, QLXD, or even the old UHFR may have only some of them. So we use Accent as an example for microphones. We have a band. Oh no, cancel. I don't want it to happen. The band is the frequency band that the device can cover. It's mostly related to the transmitters because, as you may know, ULX Digital comes only with 3 types of receivers, quite wide band, but the band is so wide that in certain countries, it comes to my mind Egypt in our region as much as the United States. It's not all allowed. So we have wideband receivers, but certain transmitters might be more narrow to be compliant with different local rules. Transmission mode can be standard or high density. Encryption, it's something that can be used whenever you have a very private kind of meeting or event. I still think it's a very good tool, but if I add to steal information, definitely. Oh, not that I really planning to do it ever, of course, but I think there are much easier way than intercept a wireless signal. But anyway, encryption is there, and whenever you need it, it's a feature you can rely on. Codeversity cannot be changed from wireless Workbench. So if you want to put an accent receiver in codeversity mode, you need to do it from the front panel. Reason being, it needs a physical reboot of a device. Then, moving on the properties, we have access control with a personal identification number. We can lock the front panel. We can lock the power switch of a device. So in case it's out of our reach, we can make sure no one can access or, most importantly, switch it on and off. As I said, we have channel properties, so the name, tags, colors. We have some audio properties, the overall gain. The overall gain is the gain of a complete system. As you may know, all our digital wireless microphones don't have a gain stage at the transmitter level. So you cannot go and set up a gain at the transmitter. The gain is calculated overall between the automatic gain of a transmitter that it's there to prevent distortion and to give you always a good level for the converter. And the receiver, so plus 12 dB, we found it's working pretty well with most of the consoles, but of course you may need for whatever reason to change it. We can switch on or off the output stage. We can set coordination parameters that we can as well see here. But I'm not going into coordination parameters because starting next episode, we'll talk a lot about them. In case of ULX Digital, we can set a couple of actions in case of interference. First of all, manual or automatic interference avoidance mode. So it's automatically recognizing an interference, but if need be, and if it's connected to a spectrum manager and a show link to control the transmitters, ULX Digital can automatically avoid interference, moving on a new frequency, and you can set it up. In case I set up it as automatic, but as you can see in my network here, there is no show link. It will not change the frequency of a transmitter. Then we have a warning action for unregistered transmitter. What is that? When an ULX Digital transmitter that is not the one I sync to my receiver goes live, goes online, I can decide, first of all, the receiver can recognize it, and then it can decide what action has to be taken. It can be, okay, let the audio flow. It can be blocked and then treated as an interference. This can also trigger the interference avoidance, or just give me a warning, but let the audio flow. Which spectrum manager I'm connected to? This is in this setup, it's a very simple assignation. I only have one spectrum manager, but there are cases where I can have more than one. And last, but absolutely not least, I can set up the infrared presets. I think infrared presets are one of the most important things to have a successful and quick setup. Infrared presets are the information that the receiver sends to the transmitter once it's synced with infrared. And this is exactly the infrared preset settings are exactly what prevent one microphone to sound louder than the others or to have kind of unpredictable events. Let's assume that I'm working in a rental company and I dry hire a few microphones from another one. I definitely do not know what what are the settings inside the different transmitters. I want to start fresh, and I want that all the transmitters are starting from the same point. This is why infrared presets can become very helpful. Not only that, I may have infrared preset settings at the receiver that I'm not aware of. And this as well could create very challenging situations. Of course, if we are touring and we have our nice 2 weeks of rehearsal, that's probably not a big deal. But on a daily basis, on a day-to-day shows, this can really help us a lot. So let's start seeing what are the infrared presets available for microphones. Of course, in-ear monitors have their own, and we'll see quickly the in-ear monitors presets as well, because differently than the microphones, we don't listen to the output of in-ear monitor, so it's even more critical to make sure that the body pack is sounding as we are expecting. New body packs, the P10RA Plus, they have even more settings and even more things that potentially could go wrong. So this is the role of infrared presets is even more important. So, but let's go back to microphones. We have power level, body pack, pad, and I want to spend a word about it. The pad on the body pack is an attenuation that we can have before the preamplifier. So if our signal for any reason is too hot, or it's very hot and our preamplifier is struggling a bit, or even if we reduce the overall gain, we see the signal always very loud, we may need to engage pad. If we are getting a signal that is too powerful for our preamp, we can have a 12 dB attenuation. The offset is something different. The offset is like the trim in your digital consoles. That means that it doesn't affect the preamplifier at all. It comes after, and it's there for a very specific reason. Imagine you're using a guitar rig with wireless body packs. You have different guitars all going into the same audio chain. Therefore, all go into the same channel of receiver. But one is a Fender and the other one is a Gibson, and the Gibson is way louder. So this is the way that allows us to balance these two body packs. So one of the two body packs will have an attenuation or gain to match the other one. Therefore, they will go to the same receiver, out of the same audio channel, and they will be balanced. But that doesn't help, this control doesn't help, and it's not needed if you don't have two body packs on the same audio channel. Same for the handheld. Imagine the situation where you may have, for some reason, two different capsules going on the same channel. Then yes, you need to balance the handheld offset, or you may use it if you have on the same audio channel a headset and an handheld mic. Their gain would be quite different, and so you may use the offset to balance different transmitters reaching the same channel of a receiver. Mute mode, okay, this is the mute of the channel. We may decide that as soon as we switch on the transmitters, we want them to be muted for some reason, and here is where we can set it up. The locks, we have in ULX Digital quite a good menu about what we can lock. So we can lock the complete body pack, we can lock the power only, we can lock the menu only. Battery type, alkaline, lithium, or nickel cadmium. This is a setting that could be overtaken by the Shure rechargeable batteries. So if you are using SB900 or ADX transmitters on ULX Digital, and you have a Shure proprietary battery, they communicate with the device on their own, so you don't need to set up anything. But otherwise, this will help the receiver to give you more precise data about remaining battery life. Then you can change the transmitter polarity. This is again something I recommend you to use only if you need to match different. In example, you have a set of body packs with different mics, most likely different brands, because Shure is using always the same polarity across all the microphones. And we may decide, okay, but I want to be on the same polarity to be coherent before I reach the desk, and here is where you can change this setting. That said, these are the infrared presets and are very, in my opinion, are very helpful. It's important to set them up before you start an event. One thing you may do is to have a virtual device, AD4QA, G56, exactly like the one is online. Imagine I don't have this device online for the time being, I only have this gray offline device. I set up some changes. I decide that I want RF power to be low, and I don't know, I don't want any. I want to make sure I don't have any offset or any padding, so I want them to sound, I want to make sure they will all sound at the same level. I want to make sure none of them is muted, and I want to make sure, I don't know, that they are completely locked. I apply the change to the virtual device, okay, so the virtual channel actually. And then what I can do is to bring this channel on the real device. That can come in the Workbench session even at a later stage. Now, the software will ask me what I want to, what setting do I want to apply to the real device. I want the wireless Workbench or the settings of the online device. In this case, I did it on purpose to apply wireless Workbench settings on a device that wasn't previously in my inventory, and therefore now the real device has the infrared presets I wanted. This can be helpful. We are preparing maybe the racks are still in warehouse or on a truck, and we are preparing for our setup. This can be a small trick to have all our devices aligned. But I can do something more. I can build presets. Now, in my experience doing technical support, I don't see it used often enough. And I think that managing presets can be really another, let's say, the next step compared to infrared presets. Because in this way, I can manage all the properties that I feel are important. I can have a standard setup, and doesn't matter what's the physical device that I have to work with that day, I will be able to know exactly what the settings are because I decide them. So I may not want to give a name to a device ID as a preset, but I may definitely want to be sure that the band is the right one, transmission mode is the standard one, maybe that there is no encryption. I can decide what I want my audio setting to be. This again, it's not the end of the world, but I'm just making sure that all my devices are having the same level. It doesn't matter if yesterday my machine was used for another job and it was blasting plus 26 because it was connected to a shitty mixer. I'll make sure that today everything starts fresh exactly as I want. Same, I can set up all the properties that I need, including the infrared presets. So I can decide that all my presets will be as I want. I save a preset, and then I just need to apply the preset to the device that I physically have in front of me. This is making our setup much more consistent and makes, at the very bottom, makes our life easier because we make sure that all our transmitters and receivers are in order before we even start the sound check, before we even start seeing signals coming in and out from our desk. So I mentioned briefly that ULX Digital has more features than ULXD. So we can see some different properties that are not available in ULX Digital, but are in ULXD. The bias, so the power out of the antenna connector, can be managed independently in ULXD. We have the same locks that we see in ULX Digital, but we also have a scan lock and a sync lock. So we are not allowing locking these parameters anyone to perform a scan or to sync new devices because there is not a complete front panel lock in ULXD. But the other parameters are pretty much the same. Of course, there is no interference avoidance. The infrared presets are somehow the same. We have some specific controls for gooseneck and boundary transmitters, ULXD 6 and 8. Moving on, PSM 1000. As I said before, they have their infrared. They can obviously, all these devices can be saved as a preset, and we can apply the preset to every physical device that we are gonna find in our way. The infrared presets of PSM 1000 are slightly different, and it's worth looking into them. They are divided in two types. One is common infrared presets. So no matter what is your receiver, you will always have these presets under your control. So lock panel, self-explanatory, volume limit, if I want to limit the overall output of a pack. What is the limiter value? Here it's not in dB, it's not like minus something, it's just how hard you want the limiter to be. And there is not, in case you wonder, there is not a specific value because having a compounder before will not make this value so clear, and so like it wouldn't work as you are used to, and so they decided to have a limiter value. We want it lower, doesn't limit much. You want it higher, it limits a lot. Mode of a receiver, so if you have a stereo or mix mode, mix balance between left and right, stereo balance, meaning, stereo balance means left and right, while mix balance is how much, in case you are using mix mode, how much of mix A and mix B you want out of your mono output in that case. High boost if you want a boost on high frequencies. This is something I recommend you to use at least a couple of dB as a starting point, of course. So you don't have to push very hard the input of your PSM 1000, and you can having still a clear and bright sound, because as you all know, in all the in-ear monitors there is a control tone at 19 kilohertz. Of course, that will tell the receiver if it is receiving a stereo channel or a mono one. This pilot tone can be disturbed by an excess of high frequency content. Therefore, this high boost can be helpful at the receiver. Then the second part is related to P10R plus receivers only. So if you have one of the new receivers, you get access to more controls. For some reason, I'm not able to access in this moment. So you can have volume lock, meaning the pot of a receiver will not work anymore. You can have an input EQ preset where you can choose if you want your pack to sound exactly as the P10R, the classic one, or not. And then you can decide to switch on and off the EQ that has band and gain and Q. So it's a full parametric 4-band EQ that you can, 4-band, low, mid, high, and high. And in this case, you can use it for a complete EQ to match, in example, different headphones models. Last but not least, you have an auto off that decide it's like a battery saver. So in case you don't receive signal for a little time, the pack will go in power saving mode. And eventually, if you set it up, you can decide that it will stop working completely after a certain amount of time when it's not receiving any audio signal. Same way as we saw for the microphones, we can save all of this in a preset. This preset belongs to colleague, and the amount of properties you can manage is not as big as the ULX Digital ULXD, but still you have input level, mode, input if it's a line, aux or mic signal getting in. And of course, you can manage the infrared presets in your transmitter, and then send the information to the receiver in the moment that you sync them. As always, if you have any question, you're more than welcome to ask it in the chat page. It can be a direct question to me, or it can be a public question. And I'd like to remind you as well that you can ask questions in advance. Some of you already did. In advance using the form that is available in the registration and probably in the reminder email that you received. So feel free to drop in. I see in the attendees list some of the big guns, people who knows probably more than me, and I'm a little scared. Maybe they are here just to spot my mistakes. I hope I didn't make too many. So feel free to ask any question you may have. Another another topic that I want to touch today, and it's going to probably be one of the last, is the report page that you don't see here in the, now you see it. So we have a frequency band conversion report. It's just for US, so we don't care about it. But we can have two ways of reporting. The first one, it's very simple, no action needed from our side. And it's just the IT report of a thing, of your setup. So what's the wireless Workbench version? What's your computer's address? What's the subnet mask? And what are the IT characteristics of your devices? The other one is a little more complicated. Before we see it, I got a question about basic audio level setups for PSM 1000. And I received, okay, let's go first with the PSM 1000 question. Basic, there is no such a thing like basic audio properties. I'd say that as a general rule, do not overload the input of the PSM 1000. Actually, I would add, be quite gentle with it. So of course, first of all, you decide, if you have a balanced line output from your mixer, that I think is the standard for most of the mixers today. So you have an XLR output, line level, so you set up line level. aux is the level that you set up when you have unbalanced signal entering your PSM 1000. And of course, mic is when you put a microphone level signal directly into your transmitter. Other than that, I can tell you, because I have it in front of me, that most likely most of the engineers are using are working with somewhere between -16 and -12. That's depending on different things. First of all, how much compression you use, and and how quick your compressor is. The meter of a PSM 1000, it's not super fast. It gives you a smooth view of what you're sending in, but very loud transient may not appear in the meters, but still can be disturbing your signal. So I always suggest to keep the input level of a PSM 1000 not too loud, to make sure that you have some headroom, because in the analog domain, the level of the audio signal is very much related to the level of the RF, and to the quality of the RF. So make sure not to be too hot in your PSM 1000 input. In terms of body pack, generally with the old body packs, I used to start in high gain and with a high boost of 2 dB. But for PSM 1000, there is no such a thing like high gain anymore. So you can start with a reasonable. You can start with to be reasonable at the starting point of a body pack that is given, and then you decide, depending on the talent and how much pressure he wants in his in-ear you can move this value if need be. Bear in mind that the pot is the main volume there. For professionals, whenever you have a mixing engineer, I do not recommend to use limiters because someone should follow and listen what's going on. Therefore, the limiter shouldn't be added because it can obviously create artifacts, and it's not natural for a singer to hear, or for a player to hear a limiter and any kind of dynamic treatment in their mix. But this is my opinion. Here there are probably monitor engineers who know better than me what to do with singers and dynamic. I have two questions about Accent. Is Accent supposed to update the infrared preset settings online? Yes, of course. Once you change them here online, then you apply the change, it will automatically be deployed to the machine. But as well, you can decide not to do it. You can decide to do it offline before you have a physical device, and then just push the offline settings into the online device. Another question about Accent is what are the main differences between the compender technology used in the Accent system and the other main competitors on the market? Okay, that's it. This is very easy. If we are talking about Accent Digital, and either in the market, we are talking, I don't know, about Digital 6000 from Sennheiser, an example, or there is no difference. They are absolutely the same because there is no compending. So moving from analog to digital removed the need of a compender in the RF system. This is why probably we can say digital sound a little more natural. So in the digital domain, there is no compender at all. The signal can travel with a full dynamic range from transmitter to receiver. Ranjan is asking if Accent Digital use a codec for the audio. Of course, because whenever you build a digital word, so whatever format you decide to use, can it be WAV, AFF, can be whatever, MP3, can be any type of digital word that includes audio, that's a codec. So yes, of course, Accent is using a codec, and it's a proprietary one. So it's not something you may, it's not an off-the-shelf codec. Shure didn't use a codec that already existed. They built Accent Digital codec in order to match and to work well with the modulation scheme. Hi Vernon. Vernon is asking, I notice that when I'm building my shows offline in the inventory section, it does not record the coordination and color presets when I drag it to the online devices. No, none of the two options is there. So an online device is not remembering the color preset, and this is not a bug, but something I'd love to change in the software, and that it may change soon, as much as it doesn't recall the coordination parameters, and this is related to how the software is built. I would say that both are not bugs because the guys are aware of it. The problem is how the software is built was not allowing them easily to record the coordination parameters. While about the color, yeah, it's just a mistake that we hopefully will get fixed for the next release. As I'm a very big fan of wireless Workbench, and I think it's one of the best products that Shure is offering, and it's definitely one of the best product if you check on its price. It's a free tool, and that's why sometimes it's not so easy to get resources allocated and change things as fast as we would love. But there is a team working on wireless Workbench consistently. It's all the same people, a bunch of very talented people. And even though we don't have resources to update it as often as we'd love, we are doing our best to match the expectations on the market. And the more we use the software, the more you guys use the software, the more we can find out small bugs, mistakes, and improve, or even new features that are needed, and improve the use of the software for all of us. So 3:46, my time is finishing for today. Oh no, I have another question. How reliable is Workbench while using third-party device to analyze and do frequency coordination? What do you mean? Third-party devices for coordination? I'd say it's totally reliable, especially because you can twist and you can twist your third-party devices as per your need. While to analyze and do frequency coordination, and I hope I can answer the other question about support for third parties. We do not support third-party. We support third-party devices, but there is no direct connection. So we do the coordination, but as offline devices. So you can trust wireless Workbench, and if any of the parameters is not what you want, what you like, what you expect for these devices, you can always change them without any effect, because it's still an offline devices, and it's something we'll investigate a little more careful during the next 3 episodes about coordination itself. If you mean analyzers, we do not support any third-party analyzer anymore. Before there was a support for WinRadio, so you could control a WinRadio scanner directly from Workbench, but starting version 6, there is not such a possibility, and the reason is that they don't speak a common language anymore. None of these analyzers speaks a common language with wireless Workbench, and it's always tricky to have integration at this level with third parties. It would require a lot of effort from their side or our side, and I think there may be also commercial reasons why this not happened. But I can't really tell you for sure exactly why this is third-party devices are not supported. In regards, but you can still import information from third-party devices analyzer, and they are as reliable as the devices. So if you have a Rough Explorer, yeah, kind of reliable. If you have a Rode Schwarz lab analyzer, absolutely reliable, but you're just transferring data from the analyzer to the software. So I hope I was clear. Thank you for your time. I hope to see you, or better not to see you. That's very weird, by the way, because I know you're there, you ask questions, you interact with me, but I can't see you, and I'm talking in my living room exactly in front of a laptop. That's very weird. The more I practice, the better hopefully I become, but it's still weird. So I hope to see you around as soon as possible, as soon as this situation is over. But in the meanwhile, thank you for joining me for this training, and on Tuesday at the same time we'll start our 3 episodes of frequency coordination. And cool. Thank you very much for being here. Oh, just remember that you can always access your microphone and talk for the questions, but this is a feature that I will enable for starting from the next call. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope I'll see you on Tuesday or next Sunday with the episode 3 of Wireless Workbench Living Room Training. Bye guys, have a good day.